The collective had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They controlled more than 200,000 star systems. They had destroyed every enemy that ever stood against them. Their technology was the most advanced in the known universe. Their military was undefeated. They believed nothing could ever defeat them. Captain of the stood inside the frozen facility and looked around with satisfaction. His crystalline body reflected the pale light of the emergency systems. The facility was old, very old. The ice outside was thousands of meters thick. No one had been here for decades, maybe longer. The sensors showed that the technology inside was primitive by standards. It was weak. It was outdated. It should have been worthless. But Captain was not a fool. He had commanded forces for 200 years. He knew that sometimes the most dangerous things were hidden in places no one expected to look. He told his crew to move carefully and examine everything they found. He told them to look for anything that did not make sense. The crew moved through the facility with methodical precision. They wore their armor and carried their weapons. Their sensors were active, searching for anything that might pose a threat. They found storage rooms filled with old data. They found equipment rooms with machinery that no longer worked. They found laboratories with experiments left half-finished decades ago. Everything they found confirmed what they already knew. This was a dead place. This was a tomb. Then one of the crew members found the pod chamber. The pod was large, almost as tall as a soldier. It was made of materials that they had not seen in 500 years, materials that were strong but primitive. The pod was sealed. The seals were intact. The pod was very cold, colder than the ice around it. Inside the pod, there was something. Captain approached the pod slowly. He could see something inside through the transparent section at the front. It was humanoid. It was a human. The human was frozen, completely still. The systems connected to the pod were still active, still providing power, still maintaining the cold. This human had been here for a very long time. The captain reached out with one of his crystalline appendages and touched the pod. The surface was cold, but there was something else. There was a faint vibration. Something was happening inside the pod. Something was changing. Captain did not understand what he was seeing. The pod was old, but the power systems were still functioning. The human inside was preserved, maintained, kept alive in a state between death and life. This was a preservation pod. This was a cryogenic chamber. This human was not dead. This human was waiting. Back on Earth, Sarah sat in a secure bunker deep beneath the Pentagon. The bunker was underground, protected by meters of concrete and steel. Around her were screens showing the status of the war. All the screens showed the same thing. Humanity was losing. The fleet had arrived in Earth space 3 months ago. Their ships were massive, kilometers long. Their weapons could destroy cities from orbit. They did destroy cities from orbit. Hundreds of cities burned. Millions of people died. The United States military tried to fight back, but they had no chance. The weapons were too powerful. The ships were too fast. Humanity's best weapons could barely damage them. David entered the bunker and walked to where Sarah was sitting. He was the chief of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the head of all military forces. His face was hard, his expression was grim. He had been fighting this war for 3 months, and he knew the truth. They were going to lose. They were going to lose in weeks, maybe days. Sarah did not look at him. She was watching the feeds from space. She could see the ships destroying what was left of the American military. She could see the battles happening over the oceans. She could see the cities burning. She was the Secretary of Defense. These deaths, these cities, these soldiers dying in space, all of this was her responsibility. David placed a document in front of her. It was the activation code for Project Valkyrie. The code was encrypted, protected by systems that had been designed decades ago. The code was long, complex, difficult to remember, but it was real. It existed. It could be used. Sarah looked at the code. She thought about her daughter, who was hiding in a bunker somewhere in Colorado. She thought about her granddaughter, who was only 6 years old. She thought about all the children on Earth, all the young people who would have no future if humanity lost this war. David spoke to her. His voice was quiet, but his words were serious. He said that once they sent the activation code, there would be no stopping what came next. He said that the super soldier would wake up, and the super soldier would be changed. He said that the super soldier would be dangerous, maybe too dangerous to control. He said that the super soldier might not follow orders. He said that the super soldier might decide to act on its own. Sarah understood all of this. She had read the files. She knew what Project Valkyrie was. She knew what the super soldier could do. She knew that he had been designed for one purpose and one purpose only. He had been designed to fight. He had been designed to kill. He had been designed to be the most effective weapon that humanity could create. Sarah stood up. She walked to the transmission console. She looked at the activation code one more time. She typed in her authorization codes. She activated the system. She pressed the button that would send the signal across the void of space to the hidden facility on 442B. The signal took exactly 17 seconds to reach its destination. In the ice in the frozen facility in the pod chamber, something changed. The pod systems detected the signal. The pod systems recognized the authorization codes. The pod systems understood what they were supposed to do. The preservation systems began to shut down. The freezing temperature began to increase. The cold that had kept the human alive for 20 years started to fade. The human inside the pod began to wake up. His heart, which had been stopped for 2 decades, began to beat again. His blood, which had been frozen solid, began to flow. His lungs, which had not drawn breath in 20 years, began to work. His eyes, which had been closed for so long, began to open. Colonel Hayes gasped as consciousness returned to him. His body convulsed as the revitalization system flooded his cells with oxygen. His neural systems activated. His training data downloaded into his enhanced mind. He remembered everything. He understood everything. He knew what had happened while he slept. He knew he knew that humanity was dying. He knew that he had been awakened to save them. Captain noticed the change in the pod immediately. The vibration became stronger. The systems connected to the pod began to move. The human inside was moving. The human was waking up. The captain reached for his weapon, but he did not draw it. He was curious. He wanted to see what would happen. He had never seen a human that was worth anything. He had never believed that humans could be a real threat. He was about to learn that he was wrong, opened his eyes, and saw the ceiling of the pod chamber. The lights were bright, almost too bright. His vision systems activated and adjusted automatically. The brightness faded to normal levels. He could see everything in the chamber with perfect clarity. He could see the details on the walls. He could see the equipment. He could see the soldiers standing in the chamber with him. His body felt wrong. It felt stiff, like it had not moved in a long time. That was because it had not moved in a long time. 20 years of cryogenic sleep meant 20 years of no movement, no muscle use, no physical activity. But was not an ordinary human. His body was engineered to recover quickly. His muscles had been treated with special compounds that would prevent atrophy. His bones had been reinforced with advanced materials. His body was already beginning to adapt, already beginning to remember how to move. Took a breath. The air tasted like it had been recycled many times. His lungs accepted the air anyway. His heart was beating steady and strong. His blood was flowing. His body was warming. All the systems that had been shut down were coming back online. All the training, all the genetic modifications, all the technology that had been integrated into his body was activating. He raised his hand and looked at it. His fingers were long and strong. His palm showed the neural enhancement marks that ran through his skin. These marks were part of his interface system, allowing him to control advanced technology through direct neural connection. His hand was a weapon. His entire body was a weapon. The pod opened with a hiss of pressurized air. Sat up. His movements were smooth, controlled, perfect. He had never moved like this before because he had been in cryogenic sleep. But his training data was in his mind. His body knew what to do because his enhanced neural system had downloaded all the fighting techniques, all the combat strategies, all the tactical information that his trainers had programmed into him. He stood up. The cold air of the chamber touched his skin. His body temperature regulated automatically. The cold did not bother him. His enhanced physiology could handle temperatures that would kill a normal human. Captain watched the human stand. The human was strong, clearly. The human was tall, almost as tall as a soldier. The human was looking around the chamber with eyes that saw everything. The captain did not feel fear. They did not feel fear. There were the superior species. There were the conquerors. But Captain did feel something else. He felt curiosity. He wanted to see what this human could do. He wanted to understand why this human had been preserved. He wanted to know what made this human worth saving. Stepped out of the pod. His feet were bare, and they touched the cold floor of the chamber. The cold told him information about the floor, about the room, about the world around him. His sensory systems were processing hundreds of data points every second. His enhanced mind was analyzing all of this information and creating a complete picture of his environment. He could see the soldiers now with perfect clarity. He could see their weapons. He could see their armor. He could see the places where their crystalline exoskeletons were strong and the places where they were weak. His training programs included combat analysis. His training programs included biology. His training programs told him exactly how to fight these beings. His training programs also told him what had happened on Earth while he slept. 3 months of invasion, cities destroyed, millions dead, the military failing, humanity losing the war. The decision made to activate him, to wake him up, to send him to fight the... Understood his purpose, understood what he was supposed to do. He was supposed to fight, he was supposed to kill, he was supposed to win. The facility's computer activated his visual feed. Images appeared in his enhanced vision, information downloaded directly to his mind. The images showed Earth, showed the fleet in orbit above Earth, showed the battles happening in space. The computer also showed him the current location of the soldiers. There were 6 of them in the chamber. There were more throughout the facility. Captain reached for his weapon. This was the moment of decision. The human was waking up and the captain could feel that something was wrong. His sensors were screaming warnings. His tactical algorithms were telling him that this human was not a normal human. This human was dangerous. But the captain hesitated. He wanted to see what this human would do. He wanted to understand. His hesitation lasted 2 seconds. That was a fatal mistake. Moved, he did not walk toward the captain. He did not run. Simply covered the distance between where he was standing and where the nearest soldier was standing. The movement was almost too fast to see. It looked like he had simply teleported. Struck the first soldier with his bare hand. His enhanced strength was incredible. His precision was perfect. He struck the place in this crystalline armor where the structure was weakest. The armor cracked. The soldier fell. The soldier did not get up. The other 5 soldiers reacted with speed that was inhuman, but they were not fast enough. Was faster, was stronger, was better. He moved through the chamber like a storm. He was a force of nature. He was a weapon being used for the first time. He was everything that humanity had spent decades creating. The soldiers tried to fight back. They tried to use their weapons, but was already past them, was already striking, was already destroying. Captain managed to fire his weapon once. The energy blast caught in the chest. The impact was powerful enough to send a normal human flying backward, but was not a normal human. The blast burned his skin, left a mark on his chest, but did not kill him, did not even slow him down. Crossed the chamber in 3 steps. He grabbed Captain by the arm. The captain tried to pull away, tried to use his superior strength to escape, but was stronger, was faster, was everything they had never encountered before. The captain fell. The captain was bleeding. The captain triggered his emergency transmitter with his last conscious thought. A message went out into space. A single word, a single command, a single piece of information that would change everything. The word was run. The message reached the fleet in orbit. The message told them that something was happening on the surface. Something was wrong. Something had gone terribly wrong. But it was too late. The message took 30 seconds to reach orbit. In those 30 seconds, finished clearing the chamber. He stood alone, breathing steady, looking at the bodies of the soldiers. He had been awake for less than 2 minutes. He had killed 6 warriors without taking a single breath. He looked at his hands. There was blood on them. His training programs told him what came next. His orders told him what he needed to do. He needed to survive. He needed to fight. He needed to stop them from winning the war. Walked toward the communications center of the facility. They would send reinforcements. They would send a fleet that would try to kill him, but was no longer asleep, was awake. And humanity had just woken up a weapon that they could not defeat. The message from Captain reached the flagship in 47 seconds. The message was simple and clear. The facility had been compromised. A threat had emerged. All forces were lost. The commander of the fleet received this message and understood what it meant. Something had gone terribly wrong. The fleet commander was Admiral, a military leader who had served for 300 years. He had never lost a battle. He had never failed an objective. His record was perfect. His confidence was absolute. When he received the message about the threat at the facility, he analyzed the data and made a decision. He would send his response team to eliminate the threat immediately. The response team consisted of 3 heavy cruisers, 12 fighter squadrons, and a demolition unit that specialized in planetary assault. This force was designed to eliminate any threat. This force had never failed. The fleet commander believed that this force would destroy whatever was on the surface of 442b and return to the fleet without significant damage. He was wrong. knew the fleet would respond. He had calculated how long it would take. He had analyzed the tactical situation. He had looked at the orbital data. The response would arrive in approximately 4 minutes. That was not much time, but it was enough. The facility's main reactor was located in the lower levels. The reactor powered everything. The reactor kept the facility warm. The reactor kept the communications systems running. The reactor kept the defensive systems active. The reactor was also extremely dangerous. All reactors were dangerous if you knew how to make them dangerous. Moved through the facility with perfect efficiency. He took a weapon from one of the dead soldiers. The weapon was advanced, designed to use crystalline energy cells. His enhanced mind understood the weapon immediately. He understood how to use it. He understood how to modify it. He understood how to weaponize it. He descended into the lower levels of the facility. The temperature increased as he went deeper. The air became warmer, more humid. The sound of the reactor grew louder. The reactor was a fusion reactor, designed to produce enormous amounts of energy safely. The designers had built in multiple safeguards. The designers had built in systems that would prevent the reactor from failing. But the designers had not anticipated someone like. The designers had not anticipated an enhanced human who could understand their systems in minutes and then systematically disable them. Found the reactor control room. The security system recognized him as a threat and tried to stop him. The security system was automated, designed to protect against intruders, but was not an intruder. Was the facility's creator, at least according to the facility's security protocols. He was human. He was authorized. The security system stood down. The doors opened, entered the reactor control room and looked at the main console. The console showed him the status of the reactor. The reactor was operating at optimal efficiency. The reactor was producing power that was being sent to the defensive systems, to the communication systems, to the entire facility. Access the reactor control systems using his neural interface. His enhanced mind connected with the facility's computers. The computers did not resist. The computers recognized his neural signature. They understood that he was authorized to access their systems. He made 3 changes to the reactor's containment protocols. The first change weakened the magnetic field that held the plasma core in place. The second change increased the reactor's power output to maximum levels. The third change disabled the automatic shutdown systems that would normally prevent a reactor meltdown. Removed his neural interface from the console and walked out of the control room. He had approximately 180 seconds before the reactor would reach critical failure. He had approximately 90 seconds before the structural integrity of the lower levels would begin to fail. He had approximately 4 minutes before the entire facility would be destroyed. The first cruiser fired on the facility from orbit. The weapon was a plasma cannon designed to destroy ships. It was more than powerful enough to destroy a ground facility. The beam of energy hit the facility and created an explosion that could be seen from the settlement 100 kilometers away. The ice around the facility began to melt. The ground began to shake. But was ready for this. He had moved to the highest point of the facility. The communications tower stretched above the ice, a structure designed to transmit signals into space, carried the weapon with him. He carried 2 extra energy cells. He was ready to fight. The fighter squadrons came in fast, flying in formation, moving with precision and speed. They had been trained to attack ground targets. They had practiced this maneuver thousands of times. They believed they would destroy their target without significant resistance. They did not expect to be attacked from the ground. They did not expect a single human to stand on top of a facility and fire an energy weapon at them with perfect accuracy. The first fighter exploded before it knew what was happening. The second fighter managed to detect the threat, but could not evade quickly enough. The third fighter was destroyed before its pilot even understood the danger. Did not stop, he fired and fired and fired. His enhanced mind calculated trajectories instantly. His enhanced body moved with perfect precision. His hands did not shake. His aim did not falter. The energy weapon fired with continuous accuracy. 3 more fighters exploded. 3 more fighters fell from the sky. 6 fighters had been destroyed. The other 6 fighters in the first squadron tried to evade, tried to escape, tried to flee, but it was too late. The reactor beneath the facility reached critical failure. The explosion was massive. It was the kind of explosion that could destroy an entire city. The reactor's core, no longer contained by the weakened magnetic field, released all of its energy at once. The explosion tore through the lower levels of the facility. The explosion reached the upper levels. The explosion destroyed everything. The facility disappeared in a column of white light. The ice around the facility melted into steam. The ground cracked. The tower that was standing on was thrown into the air by the force of the explosion. Was thrown upward, away from the facility, into the air. The explosion should have killed him. The explosion should have destroyed him, but was no longer standing on the facility, was floating in the vacuum of space. His suit, an advanced human military prototype, had been designed for exactly this situation. The suit had a thruster system that activated automatically when it detected the absence of atmosphere. The suit had a life support system that kept alive in the vacuum. The suit had armor that protected him from the radiation and heat of the explosion. Fell toward the planet below. He fell in a perfect trajectory, calculating his descent angle, adjusting his path with tiny thruster burns. Below him, the settlement grew larger. Below him, the command center that controlled the entire military operation on 442B waited. Was coming, and they had no idea what was about to happen. The command center occupied the largest city on 442B. The city had a population of 10,000 soldiers, commanders, scientists, and administrators. The command center was the military heart of all operations in this sector of space. It controlled the fleet. It controlled the ground forces. It controlled everything. The commanders in the command center had received the reports about the facility. They had received the information about the explosion. They had received the data showing that their orbital forces had been damaged. But they did not believe that any of this was serious. They believed that the situation was under control. They believed that a single threat on a frozen world could not possibly damage them. They were completely wrong. Landed in the center of the city like a meteor falling from the sky. The impact created a crater in the ground that was 50 meters across. The impact shook every building in the city. The impact sent out a shock wave that knocked soldiers off their feet. The impact should have killed any normal human being. Stood up in the crater and looked around. His suit was partially damaged from the landing, but it was repairing itself automatically. His body was intact. His mind was sharp. His focus was absolute. He was exactly where he needed to be. The command center detected his location immediately. Sensors all across the city turned their attention to the crater. Alarms began to sound. The military forces in the city began to mobilize. The commanders realized that they had a situation on their hands. General, the commander of all ground forces in the city, received the alert and responded with confidence. He had 10,000 soldiers under his command. He had weapons that could destroy buildings. He had armor that could withstand energy blasts. He believed that he could deal with a single human very easily. He ordered his forces to attack. The soldiers came out of their barracks and moved towards position. They came in groups of 10, then groups of 50, then groups of 100. They had weapons drawn. They had their armor activated. They believed that their numbers would overwhelm any threat. Did not move. He stood in the crater and waited for them to come closer. His enhanced mind was calculating trajectories and angles. His enhanced body was preparing itself for combat. His training was telling him exactly what to do. When the first group of soldiers was 30 meters away, moved. He did not walk toward them. He did not run. He accelerated from a standing position to maximum speed in less than 1 second. The movement was almost impossible to follow with normal eyes. It looked like he had simply teleported. Struck the first soldier and then moved on. The soldier fell, armor cracked, body broken, struck the second soldier and kept moving. The second soldier fell, struck the third soldier and kept moving. The third soldier fell. The soldiers tried to fight back. They tried to use their weapons. They tried to use their superior numbers, but numbers did not matter when the enemy was faster and stronger. Weapons did not matter when the enemy could move out of the way before they were fired. Moved through the soldiers like a deadly wind. He was fast, he was strong, he was efficient. He did not waste any motion, he did not miss any strike. Soldiers fell one after another, 10 at a time, then 20 at a time, then 50 at a time. But had a purpose beyond just fighting. As he fought the ground forces, he was moving deeper into the city. As he fought soldiers, he was moving toward the command center. The command center was where the orders came from. The command center was where the strategies were planned. The command center was where the military operation was coordinated. General watched his soldiers die on the sensors. He watched the video feeds showing this single human warrior destroying his forces. He could not believe what he was seeing. In 1,000 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. He ordered more soldiers to attack. He ordered the defense systems to fire. He ordered everything that could possibly be brought to bear to stop this human. But the human kept coming. The defense systems were automated, designed to protect the command center from threats. The defense systems had turrets that fired energy blasts. The defense systems had barriers that could withstand impacts. The defense systems had been designed to stop an invasion. But the defense systems had not been designed to stop something that could move faster than their targeting systems could track, moved through the defense fire like it was not there. A blast came at him from the left, and he was already gone. A blast came at him from the right, and he was already moving. The defense systems were firing at empty space while was already 50 meters away. The main gates of the command center were reinforced, designed to withstand a siege. The gates were made of materials that could not be broken by conventional weapons. The gates had taken decades to build. The gates were impenetrable. Ran at the gates at full speed and jumped. He was moving fast enough and high enough that he cleared the gates completely. He landed inside the command center courtyard and kept running. Soldiers inside the command center opened fire, did not slow down, did not stop. He ran directly at them, moving between their shots, moving around their attacks. When he reached them, he did not fight them for long. He did not need to. He was fast enough to defeat them without letting them fire more than 1 or 2 shots. The command center's main command room was on the top level of the structure. The command room was where the orders came from. The command room was where the military operations were coordinated. The command room was where General was standing, looking at the sensors, watching his entire military structure collapse. Broke through the doors of the command room with the force of a battering ram. The soldiers inside tried to stop him. They tried to shoot him. They tried to use their weapons. But there were only a dozen soldiers in the room and was more than fast enough to handle them. General reached for his weapon, but he stopped. He looked at and he understood. He understood that the military had failed. He understood that they had made a terrible mistake. He understood that they had awakened something that they could not defeat. The general reached for his communication device. He was going to tell the fleet to retreat. He was going to tell his forces to abandon 442B. He was going to admit that they had lost this battle. But before he could send the message was already there. The general fell. The communication device fell from his hand. Walked to the command center's main computer terminal. His neural interface connected with the system. The system opened to him. He began to download the files that were stored there. He downloaded the military strategies. He downloaded the technological specifications. He downloaded the location of every ship in the sector. And then he found something else. He found files about the enslaved species that they had conquered. He found information about the rebellions that had been suppressed. He found data about the systems that were controlled by the through force and fear. Understood immediately, they could be defeated, not just on 442B, not just in this system, they could be defeated everywhere. This empire could be broken. All it would take was the right catalyst. All it would take was the right moment. All it would take was the right information. Prepared a message. He encoded everything he had learned. He prepared it for transmission across the galaxy. He was about to change everything. Admiral received the signal from the command center on 442B and realized that something had gone catastrophically wrong. The signal was a distress call mixed with military data. The data showed him everything. The facility was destroyed. The command center was lost. 10,000 soldiers were dead or missing. The human was still alive. The Admiral made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. He ordered the entire fleet in the sector to move toward Earth. If they could not hold 442B, then they would attack the source of the threat directly. They would destroy Earth. They would eliminate humanity. They would end this war before it could spread. The order went out across the fleet. Millions of ships began to move. The largest military force ever assembled in galactic history was moving toward a single blue planet. They were going to end the human threat once and for all. Sarah received the intelligence reports from deep space sensors. The sensors showed the fleet moving. The sensors showed that the entire military was being mobilized. The sensors showed that the fleet was heading toward Earth. Sarah understood what this meant. This was the final assault. This was the moment when humanity would be eliminated from the galaxy forever. David was in the command center with her. His face was hard. His eyes were closed. He was accepting the reality. Humanity had fought as hard as they could, but it was not enough. The war was over. They had lost. Then the communication system activated. A message came through from. The message was clear and direct, had accessed the command center database, had found something important, was sending information that could change everything. The information was about the genetics. They had weaknesses that they kept hidden. They had biological limitations that they had never revealed to their enemies. They were not as superior as they claimed to be. They could be defeated. But more importantly, the information included the locations of the enslaved worlds. The information included the identities of the species that they controlled. The information included detailed knowledge about where they held their power. The information included everything that was necessary to start a galactic rebellion. Sent this information to every enslaved species in the galaxy. He sent it to a species that had been conquered 2,000 years ago. He sent it to the Vex, whose entire world had been destroyed by weapons. He sent it to the who had been slaves for 1,500 years. He sent it to every species that they had ever conquered. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The enslaved species began to rebel. They attacked their overseers. They destroyed the administrative centers. They seized control of their own worlds. The rebellion spread like a fire across the galaxy. It was unstoppable. It was unlimited. It was the beginning of the end for the collective. The fleet, which had been heading toward Earth, found itself surrounded. Ships from enslaved species were attacking from all directions. They who had always fought with overwhelming numbers and superior technology found themselves outnumbered. They found themselves fighting enemies on 1,000 worlds at once. They found themselves losing. Back on 442B, stood in the ruins of the command center and watched the data streams coming in from across the galaxy. The rebellion was spreading. The enslaved species were rising up. The empire was crumbling. The human resistance forces, who had been hiding in underground tunnels on 442B, emerged from their hiding places. They had been waiting for a signal, waiting for the right moment. Now they moved through the city and took control of the positions. The soldiers, who had been secure in their power just hours before, found themselves surrounded by enemies on all sides. The battle was not long. Faced with multiple threats on multiple worlds, could not concentrate their forces enough to hold any single world. They chose to retreat. They chose to abandon 442B. They chose to try to defend their core systems instead. But it was too late. The rebellion had grown too large. Too many species had joined the fight. The collective was breaking apart. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years was collapsing in a matter of days. The Galactic Council convened for an emergency session. The council had existed for 5,000 years. The council had been controlled by for 3,000 of those years. Now, for the first time in generations, the council was meeting without domination. The representatives of the newly freed species stood in the council chamber. They looked at each other with a mixture of hope and disbelief. They had been enslaved. They had been oppressed. They had been ruled by for so long that many of them had forgotten what freedom felt like. Now, suddenly, that freedom was theirs. One of the council members asked how this had happened. How had they been defeated? How had an empire that had seemed eternal been broken so quickly? The answer came from an unexpected source. A human representative, sent from Earth to speak for humanity, stood up and explained. Humanity had created a super soldier. That super soldier had destroyed the facility on 442B. That super soldier had fought his way to the command center. That super soldier had discovered the weakness in the system and had exposed it to every enslaved species in the galaxy. One human, one awakened warrior, one act of courage and intelligence had changed the entire galaxy. The human had not conquered the galaxy. The human had simply shown the enslaved species that they could be defeated. The human had given them the tools to defeat their oppressors. Now the human was standing on the balcony overlooking the city of New Freedom, which had once been a fortress. The city had been liberated. The people who had been slaves were now free. The presence was gone. Looked up at the stars and thought about everything that had happened. He had been asleep for 20 years. He had woken up to fight in a war that humanity was losing. He had moved through enemy territory, destroying everything in his path. He had reached the command center. He had found the information that would change history. And now the war was over. They were retreating. The enslaved species were free. The galaxy was awakening to a new future, had been created for one purpose. That purpose had been fulfilled. Sarah sent a message from Earth. The message was simple. It said thank you. It said that humanity would never forget what he had done. It said that he had saved not just humanity, but every species in the galaxy. Received the message and allowed himself a moment of rest. He had been in constant motion since waking up. He had been fighting, planning, and moving forward without pause. Now, for the first time, he could stop and breathe. But knew that this peace would not last forever. There would be rebuilding to do. There would be new threats to face. There would be new challenges for the galaxy to overcome. But for now, for this moment, the war was finished. The darkness was ending. The light of freedom was spreading across the galaxy, one world at a time.